A dry hillside village. A few women are walking along a steep and rugged path full of rocks. They are carrying 2 water containers on their shoulders. They walk along the path with great difficulty. One of them is pregnant. With great difficulty they reach the top of the hill. The pregnant woman sometimes puts her hand on her stomach. Meanwhile, a woman is giving birth in the village. The women of the village are near her to attend her. Those who went for water had difficulty reaching the top of the hill. There is a spring coming through the mountains. The clear water comes from the spring. The women tiredly washed their faces and hands from that water. On the other hand, a village woman is about to give birth to a baby. All the women are going back to the village filled with water from the spring. Suddenly, the pregnant woman slipped and fell. She put her hand on her stomach. Blood trickled down her leg. Her friend Leila sat next to her, comforting her. At the same time, a young woman of the village gave birth to a baby boy. The village has been in drought for years. For water, the women of the village have to walk a long way to fetch water from the spring on the top of hill. On the other hand, everyone in the village congratulated the baby's parents. The women all sang and danced to celebrate the birth of the baby. A sumptuous meal was cooked. At the same time, the miscarried woman was again filling the water container from the spring for home use. Her face showed a kind of indifference. She carried the heavy water containers on her shoulders and walked back home along with her friends. Celebrations are winding down in the village. Women are giving greetings and gifts to the mother and baby. They clapped their hands and sang and danced. But without paying any attention to this, Leila became sad. Seeing this, her mother-in-law Fatima invited her to dance. Then she said that when a child was born here, the child died in a womb on the top of the mountain. That child should not have died. Water gave life and water itself took life. I am ashamed of your silence. Our village has dried up due to such calamities. Ignoring what she said, the women of the village continued to sing and dance. That night at Leila's house, everyone was eating the food received on the occasion of the baby's birth. But she did not eat. Her husband's father asked, "Why don't you eat food? Isn't this happy food?" Leila said she didn't feel like eating. She is very sad. When sleeping with her husband at night, she said, "Not today. I cannot." Then her husband asked, "Do we want a baby?" Then she said, "Forgive me." The next day when the women of the village were bathing together, Leila said, a woman had miscarried and was fetching water from the top of the hill. Hearing that, Leila's mother-in-law Fatima said, "Don't talk about such things here." Leila says, "I will definitely talk. Miscarriage is not the first time. Everyone knows about it, especially men." Then Fatima said, "The reason why you say this is because you are barren." Then Karima said that it was not true. Leila's child had also been lost on the mountain. Leila said that all the women's pregnancies have been miscarried in the mountains. Did anyone say anything? We are all called infertile because we don't tell anyone. Then the old lady said, "Shut up." Then Leila said men should bring water. That is what is happening in the nearby village. Then Fatima said that the water was for domestic use, so it was the women's job to fetch it. This has been happening in our country for many years. This is our tradition. Don't try to change it. Leila said that in the past men used to work in the fields and go to war because of that. What do the rest of the people do except the men who go to town and work? Can't they go and fetch water? They are wasting their time by sleeping, drinking tea and playing cards. That's when the village songstress comes and says, "I got pregnant 19 times. 12 of them died that too due to miscarriage while bringing water. All the women in the village have miscarried 5 or 6 times. Is this a tradition?" Leila is so right. Henceforth, men must bring water. Then another woman asked how we can get them to agree to this. Then Leila said, "We can strike. Don't have sex with them." The songstress said, "That's right. Let's do it. We can strike without having sex with men." Hearing that, all the old women left. Fatima asked, "Has everyone lost their minds? This is a great sin." Leila says this is the only weapon against men. Then a woman asked, "If we do this, they will become angry with us and show the anger to the children, and thus the peace in the family will disappear." Leila says, "If they don't bring water, we won't have sex." The songstress says she is right. Are you all ready for this strike? Leila's mother-in-law, Fatima, and a few women left there. A few young women were ready to strike with them. Men became aware of their strike. They talked about it. One of the men said Leila was behind all this. Fatima told Leila's husband Sami that he should get rid of her and marry another girl. Leila heard everything they were saying. At night Leila asked Sami, "Do you love me?" Sami said, "I can't live without you, and I won't marry anyone else." Your fight is right. Sami supported her strike. Leila went to the singer and said that if we don't strike, we will never get water. Then tourists came to visit the village. The tourists paid the village chief and the imam some money. In return, the villagers presented their traditional art form to the tourists. The art form is performed by the village singer, Leila, and her friends. Tourists and everyone in the village were there to watch. Tourists and villagers enjoyed watching their singing and dancing. Suddenly, there was a change in the lyrics of the song. The men in our village are pretending not to hear anything. Why don't you bring water? Your hands are weak. There will be nothing to harvest. Our village is destroyed. Listen to your wives. I sing this song for men, but they never listen to me. Where is the money given by the tourists? Where does it disappear? We want water facility in the village, and we want to live with good facilities. Till then we will not do anything for you. The women of the village conveyed their needs to the men of the village through song. They clapped their hands silently and listened in front of the tourists without being able to respond. The next day, while washing the clothes, all the women told Leila that our strike was very difficult, and we don't think we will be able to hold on. Then the songstress said that we should not give up. Sometimes even a lion cannot defeat an ant colony. We should not give up. If we give up now, we may not get love in the future. If we let go of our now, our life will be like a wet foot on the ground. Leila said that in our country we can get water in the village. No one should give up. They all decided to go ahead with the strike. Night Sami says to Leila, you have declared a war. Imam and Sheikh will call you. They will blame you. Will there be quotes in Holy Book with support? You have to be ready for anything. Then they both began to study the scriptures. The family life in the village is being disturbed as some people come out at night and beat their wives. Both Leila and Sami had waves of strikes. One day a meeting was held in the mosque led by the imam, and the village headman and all the men of the village were called together. The men all said that they should beat the women and stop their strike. Finally, Sami was asked for his opinion, and he said that we can build a pipeline and bring water to the village with the money received from the tourists. No need to wait for government action. Otherwise, we can help the women to fetch water. Hearing this, the men said that you should teach your wife manners. Hearing this, Sami got angry and people started pushing and shoving each other in the meeting. Sami said to his friends, we just need to bring water. If we listen to old people, our life will go like this. Leila's husband's sister's wedding was cancelled and said there is a strike going on in your village. I don't want my son from a place like that. After hearing this, Sami's sister slaps Leila and says her life is ruined because of your strike. Leila was humiliated in front of everyone. Sami went to the government office and applied for water in the village. The government officer said, we are considering the request for water and electricity. You don't need to rush it. Once you get water and electricity in your house, the women in your house will have more demands. Don't give it a chance. Sami's father told Sami that you should divorce Leila and get married. Otherwise this village will be divided into two. Just think and decide. Sami says to Leila that I have given you the knowledge to carry out your strike. I myself have unleashed the demon inside you. You have to do something. This will be a big problem for our village. Leila asks him, are you supporting me or not? All these problems were here earlier. All of us are seeing it now. And they argue. Leila writes love striking village at the entrance of the village. Then a reporter comes to the village, and he writes about insects. All the men of the village said he is a reporter, and everyone may know about the strike going on in our village. Sami and his friend came to meet the writer. Sami told the writer that if you give a report in the newspaper about the lack of water and electricity in our country, it will be of great help to the people here. Then the reporter said, I am a person who writes about insects, and I don't write about politics. Hearing this, Sami got angry, and they had a fight. Sami's friend pulled him out of the fight. The songstress told Leila to go and meet the writer, and went to the top of the water collecting hill to meet him. She saw him there and realized that it was her ex-boyfriend. When she saw him, she was ready to go back. He called her, and said, I came here to see you. She said, I am married. You should leave here. They had a previous relationship. They were lovers. The principal informed Sami that he would be dismissed from the school if the strike continued. Parents allege that children will get bad influence because of you. Sami dropped out of school. The reporter sees Leila and says, I still love you. Leila angrily said no, and left. Leila tells Sami that I have an old love affair. Hearing that, he angrily said, you cheated on me, you lied to me, you are a whore. Tell me who you were. Leila says, I belonged to someone else. I loved him. He was the most beautiful moment of my life. I am telling you this now because I thought you would understand this in the love relationship we have. I still love you, and I will always love you. Hearing everything, Sami asked, do you still love him? She walked away without answering. Leila and the village women symbolically made a well out of bed sheets and sticks as part of the strike. It read, your heart is like a dry thorn, like this well. At night the men of the village set fire to the symbolic well. Sami goes to the reporter to kill him and puts a knife on his neck. The reporter says, if you kill me, do you think Leila will love you more? Sami asked why you came. The reporter says, maybe she still loves me, or I hoped she would come with me. But she loves you. That night Sami went to the top of the hill to fetch water without anyone seeing him and filled it from the spring. Then brought home. Leila was happily waiting for him at the door of the house. Leila says, you joined the strike with us, didn't you? Sami laughs. Sami invited the reporter to a harvest festival in the next village. Leila and her friends decided to inform the other villagers about this strike during the harvest festival. The village chief and other men came to know about this, but the rest of them said that they could not be stopped. One man said, I have an idea. They paid money to the local bandits to prevent the women of their village from going to the festival. Knowing this information, Leila and her friends decided that somehow they should go to the festival. They wore veils and went to the festival, and on the way they were taken hostage by bandits. All the men are dancing at the festival. The leader of the gang came and told them that all the women had been taken hostage, and they would not come to the festival. The reporter has also come to see the festival. The men of the village sing and dance while the women sing. It was Leila and her friends, and they sang and danced, and the lyrics were like this. There is a strike in our country. We need water. We need to bring water to our village from the tourist revenue. If that doesn't happen, the strike will continue. The leader of the bandit came back and looked at the faces of the women he had taken hostage, and they were all children. The reporter reported in the newspaper about the women's strike in that village and the developments there. This news came in the newspaper, and Sami called the office. A committee has been formed to solve this problem in their village. The reporter's article caused terrible problems for their administration. The government has been blamed for not providing water facilities to the people. All the women of this country have joined them. Now the government should resolve this issue as soon as possible without it becoming public. Hearing all this, Leila hugged Sami. The village chief was informed that the representative of the government would come and do the things needed to deliver water as soon as possible. The reporter was packing things to go back from that village when Leila came to the window and gave him a flower. Later that night, Leila and Sami had sex. All their demands are going to be fulfilled. They stopped the strike. Leila and Sami forget everything and have sex. In the next scene we see a woman coming from the water pipe in the middle of the village and carrying water. All the women of the village are dancing happily. The movie ends here. Make sure subscribe and turn on notification so you can watch more video like this.